The following is a fan-based review. We claim no ownership to what is being discussed other than our own opinions. Hey everybody, welcome to the Tokucast. This is Matthew.
This is Marcus.
And thank you so much for joining us again. Hopefully you watched our last episode. If this is your first time here, we watch and review Toei shows, including Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and other related shows like Garo, which we will get to later down the road.
And Ultraman at some point as well.
Maybe. But if you watched our last episode on Battle Fever, welcome back. If this is your first time here, we will be discussing the 1981 Super Sentai, Taiyo Sentai Sun Vulcan.
Oh, Sun Vulcan, the excitement I wish I had for this show.
The excitement we all wish we had for this show. The first episode was so much fun, wasn't it, Marcus?
Well, yeah, but first let's get into the premise. Now, this show was originally supposed to be a sequel to Denziman, which I'm actually very upset that we could not watch. I did watch the first episode, speaking of which we only ended up watching sub-series.
Completely subbed.
Mm-hmm. And the first episode was actually very good in Denziman. We got to meet, all the major characters there. Kenji Oba, of course, playing a favorite of mine from Battle Fever, Denziman, Gavin. But in this Sun Vulcan was originally planned to be a sequel to Denziman. And they were trying to get the cast members back at some point, but of course, most of them were just not willing or did not want to, or were too busy in Kenji Oba's case because Gavin was just about to get started the next year.
Valid.
So that is why that did not happen in this show. But we did end up getting some of the plot points, a major villain from the show coming back. But it was originally supposed to be a sequel, and I'm a little bit upset that we did not get that, actual team up. Was there pictures of it that could have happened, but it was, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but never did. But moving on to actually Sun Vulcan.
Yeah,
this first episode.
So the first episode, so the premise of Sun Vulcan, just like with Battle Fever, and I don't know about Denziman, it is another government-controlled Sentai. They are part of the government, they work for the government, in this case the United Nations.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with each member of Sun Vulcan, somehow, they knew that they would become Sun Vulcan before it happened, being attacked.
Well, they were all being trained for it beforehand.
Valid, I guess. But I think the best case out of those three attacks was Panther being attacked by the bomb in the balloon.
Yes.
Which floated just fine until you heard the ticking noise, because then he tried to give it to a small child, which was also funny.
Yeah.
For all the wrong reasons.
This show puts children in danger pretty often.
Yes, and I want to talk about an episode when we get there, but that is very true. Though, even before any of that happened, the first thing you see and hear from this show is the opening, which I hated.
Talking.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Aw.
I'm talking about the theme song.
I like the theme song.
I did not. Well, okay, I didn't like the singer.
The singer was actually the original, Vol Eagle 1.
Really?
Yes.
He's an awful singer. He should not do that again.
It's so mean.
I don't care. He did not sound good. The song was fine. In terms of writing.
When you first hear it, it gets you so excited. Because those first couple of beats are pretty...
It's alright. I preferred the Battle Fever opening, in my opinion.
Yeah, me too.
Though I do like that, I did get it stuck in the Sun Vulcan theme stuck in my head for a few days. Eagle, Shark, Panther, Eagle, Shark, Panther.
Fun time.
Yeah, it had its moments. That's the problem. That's my biggest problem with it. It had its moments, but it couldn't just do it throughout the whole song. But anyway, so after these three government agents are attacked, one of which is 19 years old, which I was a bit skeptical on, but grew to forget.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah. My first opinion of these characters, these Sentai, Red seems like a stereotypical leader. Blue kind of seemed like a douche. The guy who plays guitar on a boat. But luckily, he wasn't. He didn't.
He was a good character.
He was a good character. And unfortunately, Yellow was exactly what we thought he was, which is a hungry, obsessed, womanizing idiot.
And he was... We'll get into this more with the character reviews. I wish so many things could have been done with that character that weren't done with that character, half because of that actor, who we will also talk about near the end of this as well. Okay, so we end up meeting, a little bit into the episode, we end up meeting the Chief Arashiyama, who I liked. I liked the Chief pretty much. I really wish that he, you know,
Obsessed with sunglasses.
he was the original CSI
Miami. Glasses off. Yeah.
But he was a great character, and I wish that we could have done a little bit more with him. But I feel like at the same time we did end up getting a lot with him during the show.
Oh, we did, especially like later down the lines. The amount of times they tried to kidnap his daughter, which not the worst idea, but you think they would learn it's not going to work. They had a better base, in my opinion.
They did.
Like, in terms of how it looked and how they got there. Like, with Battle Fever, you feel like it took them 20 to 30 minutes just to get to base.
Yeah.
With this one, they're already there at the curry shop, which was good.
Yeah. I feel like for this one, though, because this is the first and only time that we've gotten a team of all-male Rangers.
Valid. There was only 3 of them.
They did set up one thing. They set up the color scheme of red, blue, and yellow being like a main thing throughout it. We end up seeing it in Live Man, Hurricaneger, what else? Gecko Ranger.
There's always, aside from maybe 1 or 2 Sentai, there's always a red, a blue, and a yellow.
Kyoryuger and
Jakku?
Battle Fever.
Oh, right.
Just those 2 that, yellow wasn't there. And this time, we also end up getting, that the main 3 end up being like, red ends up being a bird of prey, yellow ends up being a big animal, a big land cat, and blue ends up being a water. Most usually sharks, because shark ends up being like basically the entire thing except for Live Man and for Hurricane, where they both end up being dolphins.
Which, it worked. But I think that was also because, it was a female blue in that case, which was going to be the case until the newest Sentai Zyuohger, where a female blue was finally a shark. But that, we'll get there much later down the road. Also, with the introduction of the villains, the Machine Empire, Hell Saturn.
Is Darth Vader?
Yes, there's one Darth Vader that looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yes, he does.
And he kind of wages war on the United Nations, but before he wages war, he kind of projects himself, like an image of himself, and says, I will be taking over the world. But they pan to the United Nations, who is apparently speaking English. Sort of. They literally pan to this office room with a bunch of old people, and all you hear is the words talking.
And it's amazing.
And it's hilarious for all the wrong reasons. It just seems like...
It was lazy.
It was lazy because the kids who are going to be watching this, the people who are going to be watching this, aren't going to know English.
Or they might be learning it.
Or they might be learning it, so they're not going to know what they're actually saying. But to people who are watching this in America, it seems like hilariously lazy writing.
Now, we'll also end up saying this because I think it's either episode 1 or 2 that we do end up getting to see the Zero Girls for the first time.
I think it's 1.
Okay, so it's in 1. It's really weird. And
because all female generals?
No, it's not that. It's like, it's much more men versus women in this case. And that stays true in the rest of the actual series.
Valid. Because I never think of it that way.
All men in Sun Vulcan, which is a problem I will get to. I did not like that. And then we end up having like all females except for Hell Saturn, and later another character that he
doesn't stay around very long.
Yeah, it's just like those 2.
I literally wrote down that Hell Saturn is a pimp with all female generals.
He was a pimp with female generals. Did you see him? See what they were wearing? Anyway, moving on.
Amazon killer. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and then we end up getting a little bit further down the line because not much ends up happening.
Well. There is one thing I want to talk about, and is when they were first given their Vulcan suits.
Yes.
They are standing next to each other. Shark on, if you're looking at the picture, shark on the left, eagle in the middle, panther on the right. He goes in color order. He says, "You'll become Vol Eagle," and he morphs, and the suit actor is in. I'm gonna say this right now, and you will be seeing pictures of this. Shark is the tallest one.
He is.
And then when he gets into his suit, he becomes the shortest one by a very large margin.
This actually ends up happening later as well. In Go Busters, because Blue was the tallest one, but his suit actor was short.
Yes, but I think it helped that they were always in motion in Go Busters.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. They were just standing there.
Yeah. And it was a major issue because it was like, where did the rest of his height go?
It's not like with Power Rangers Turbo where they show the little kid growing.
Yeah, this is a legit opposite.
By the way, for any Power Rangers who are listening to this or watch Super Sentai, one of the villains in this is played by the same woman who plays Rita Repulsa, the original villain of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which I adored. Because seeing that giant grin again put me back to 1995, 1996, you know, watching Power Rangers again.
It made me so happy just to see her.
Oh, God. She even if she had a metal afro.
Yeah. She's still a great character. So I do want to point this out. We won't really be talking about robots in this.
Right, the mechs.
Until when Flashman, whenever that ends up getting done.
We'll talk about them like on what we think of them as a concept and how they look, but we really won't talk about them in detail because they don't serve the plot, except the
It's not really they don't even serve the plot. It's like they end up doing the same thing every single episode. And that ends up being very problematic. It's like you can literally skip over every single one of the robot fights except like the last two in this show, and they're like the first one and the very last two of the entire show. It's like nothing will really ever end up changing. They always end up ending the fights the same way with the Aura Plasma Geish.
That they have to say 3 times.
Yes.
Plasma, Aura Plasma Geish.
Or rather,
Aura Plasma Geish. We get it.
Yeah, it's the same thing every single time. So we want to be.
I have pictures of that too, which I have Aura Plasma Geish. But anyway, speaking of the robot, I didn't like the look of the robot that much, but only because I think they were trying to get it's 2 things that combine into a robot, which becomes fashion more than function. Or, sorry, reverse that, function more than fashion.
The biggest problem I did have with the robot as well is the fact that it was just blue and yellow in the legs, and they were both called blue parts or something.
It was called a Vol Bull, I think, or Vulcan Bull, but it just looks like a giant pair of legs, and then Eagle gets a jet because he's a pilot, which I get that. And then they combine. What I do like, which was really underused, was the shield.
Yes.
The bladed shield which I thought was a dagger, but it turns out to be a tonfa kind of weapon, which is really cool. And the shield blades come out and they spin and it breaks the weapon of the monster, which I thought was cool. It was really cool and underused.
It was extremely underused, and I really wish they would have used that a lot more throughout the actual show.
And the chain and handcuff, which was used even more, which really didn't really seem to serve a purpose except for a couple episodes. And then Ora Plasma Geish.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving on with the actual plot, we end up getting into episode 4, and this is when we first meet, or I guess re-meet technically, Queen Hadorian, who was the main villain
of Denziman,
who ends up making a return. As you said, this is originally supposed to be a sequel, but she was really the only one they could get back, and I'm so happy that they did.
Yeah,
she was the greatest addition to this cast because a lot of them
it was a great addition to the cast, and also it was a great addition to the villains.
Yes,
these were good villains this season as opposed to Battle Fever, which were weak. I felt like there was more plotting. There was characterization with some of these characters, with Hadori and Hell Saturn, Amazon Killer when she's introduced. They have opinions of each other other than blind loyalty.
Yeah.
There's coups. There's conniving. It was almost more entertaining to watch them.
Yeah.
Which is
and I will say this because this, just going back to the robot for just a second, this is the first time we get a combining robot in the series.
Valid.
Denziman and Battle Fever, they were all one piece. This time it was technically 3 pieces being put together.
Which is technically it was 2. It was because there was Vol Jaguar the carrier, or Vulcan Jaguar the carrier that carried them. Vulcan Bull, which was the leg. I don't know what the jet was called.
It didn't matter.
And because they didn't really use them as separate pieces, it was just here they are, they're combining. Let's go fight.
It was Cosmo Vulcan and Bull Vulcan. Cosmo was the jet.
Oh yeah, it's a good concept to have combining things because it's more entertaining. It's cooler. But I think half the reason they do that is more toys to sell.
Yeah, and this is the first time that the actual robot outsold the carrier, and that's what ends up setting up the robots end up being the main parts, and the carriers, as we see basically after, I want to say. Jetman, that's the last time that the carrier ends up really being a thing. Except, we end up getting an Outer Ranger, of course, but that's just a whole other Zord on itself.
True, but that's also a Zord on itself. Though other Sentais will get carriers,
but they don't do anything.
They either don't do anything or they're like a power up. I think like in Zero Ranger, wasn't the white brontosaurus technically a carrier of some sort?
Titanus.
Yeah,
which is what it would call.
Yeah, it was more. It wasn't. It becomes less of a carrier and more of a power-up edition.
Yeah. But getting back to the actual plot of the show, we end up meeting Queen Dorian, and she's been frozen in ice after escaping from the Vader Castle last time after that got exploded. She ends up being exploded. That she ends up being encased in ice, and her heart ends up stopping.
And so they give her a mechanical one.
They give her a cybernetic heart, and it brings her back and completely changes her appearance because obvious.
Well, it was also to make her match the theme they were going for. This one, the Machine Empire. They wanted to make her look more robotic, even though she only had a mechanical heart and still practiced witchcraft with her metal afro, her purple eyeliner, and
purple lipstick.
Yeah,
she looked great though.
Oh no, she looked great. Every time she talked, it was fantastic.
She was a great addition to the show. Yeah, not much ends up happening for a little bit. I will say this, because by this point we've already met Miso. She was introduced in episode 2. I have such a problem with this.
This is the daughter?
The daughter
of the commander.
Yes, because she was there, and I loved her character.
Oh no, she was a great character.
I just wish that
she did more.
We'll get into this more in the character review, but I really wish she did more, and I'll really explain why then.
And not to mention, really, she also was to be the token girl,
which is a problem,
and also to be the friend/master of this season's talking animal, which shows up next to never, except to show that Panther is afraid of dogs because he's
being a thing. So nothing really ends up happening for a little bit. They, constantly end up sending out monsters. I like the monster designs this season.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they were fine.
Manga. They all say manga.
They all say manga, and it was so exciting when they said it because I don't even know why. It was just fun. I thought that
battle. It's I am. I was like, I am battle manga. It just screams, and it did get you excited. You don't know why, but it did.
I will say this on a lot of their plans. They were pretty effective on getting some of the things done. They infiltrated Sun Vulcan's bases a
number of times.
Yes, even blowing it up at one point. But it's just the monsters up until after episode 23 don't really end up having that much of a point.
No, because after 23...
That's when the tone changes end up happening.
Yeah.
So I understand that we are skipping around for those of you listening and watching. But with these early seasons... And we'll say this because up until Dynaman, with Dynaman, that show got shortened because it got preempted a little bit by the news that came on right after it. So it's like with that shortening, we need to add more story and more actual plot development.
Yeah, so until then, Dynaman, it was all just like Battle Fever, what we said with Battle Fever, it's all just very plot of that episode and then not connect until it did kind of get connected near the end.
Yes, but that's a problem because that only happened near the end.
Yeah.
But... we are skipping around a little bit, and we will end up skipping to 23 now because not much ends up happening for quite some time.
Before we do you want to talk about what we think of the concept of costumes and all that, or do you want to say that to the end? I like their costumes. They're it's simple, but it's
stylistic.
And the helmets look good.
Now, I will say this because speaking of those helmets, no, it's not even that. It's the fact that Gray. Vol Eagle had an eagle on his head, and it was gray. Vol Panther had a panther on his head, and it was gray. Vol Shark, however, had a blue shark on his head. I hated the fact that only Vol Sharks was the non-gray one, or that the other two weren't colored as well.
I've always thought Vol Shark's helmet was just in the shape of a shark. I don't remember there being an actual emblem of a shark.
No, there was a shark on him. There was an actual shark on the head, and that ends up being a little bit of an issue because the other characters just don't have that stylization in their helmet. We'll post a picture of this.
I'm trying to find the picture, but I'm not really seeing the shark on the. It looks like the. Yeah. Oh, okay.
It has.
It's really hard to tell because it's blue and blends in with the helmet.
And that's the issue. It's why is his the only one that's not gray in comparison to the other two? It's just a weird stylistic choice that I really wish they could have done some better things on. I like the fact that they have scarves.
Oh yeah, that did work.
Yeah.
Now, with every Sentai, they have a roll call.
They do have a roll call.
And they do this one too. Now, I've never said this before in my life, and you might hate me for this. I made a note of, I think at first it was too much posing during the roll call.
Nope, the posing worked.
I'm not saying the posing didn't work. I'm just saying it was an excess. It was like 45 seconds of straight posing to music. Like, and we'll show a picture of this. Volshark's pose
It's the best.
It's ridiculously stupid.
It is, but it's the best because it's ridiculously stupid. The
Volshark
other two ends up making sense, but his is just like
he's on one leg like a flamingo, arms stretched out and leaning at a 90-degree angle. And we will be showing a picture of this, and he does it pointing both ways.
Yeah, and it's just really weird because I figure this is just an issue with a lot of Sentai and a lot of Rider and other things as well. As like, why would you pose after that? Really, the monster at this point should have shot you.
Like, unlike with Tokucast, where they had the little stay behind the line while the Rangers are morphing thing.
Yeah, and if you try to go across it, you got exploded.
Which was a welcome addition that unfortunately was not used for very long. But anyway, that's a different Sentai. So my problem with Volshark is that they took this ridiculousness in this pose also into his fighting. Shark jaws, which is him just making claws with his hands and going up, chomping up and down the enemy's head, but it somehow makes him malfunction and blow up.
But that happens with basically every single Sentai. They have that one move that's just like, why, but it works.
And then also where he lays down on the ground and he goes like shark flying, and he floats like Jesus Christ and flies past the enemies.
And it ends up being one of the most amazing things just because it's completely and utterly hilarious.
Stupid.
But then we end up having let's just get this out of the way now. Panther. His name is Panther, but when that picture showed up,
it's a jaguar.
It's a cheetah.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Oh my god, I wasn't paying enough attention, I guess. It's a cheetah? Really?
Yes.
That's awful.
That's lazy.
That is just... And also, aren't panthers black, or am I getting them mixed up?
No, they are.
Fantastic. Lazy.
They did.
Like, Vol Cheetah would sound fine, or Vol Jaguar, but...
You said Vol Cheetah. Apparently we're in Dragon Ball Z now.
Sorry, it took me a minute. Wow, okay.
But
it's early.
Just moving on, I really wish some things could have been done better with the suits. I like the helmets. I just wish, everybody was either that one color or Shark was also gray. But moving on to episode 23, because this is when the plot actually speeds up. Everything else before this point is very inconsistent. I felt like almost every single monster fight was a joke, and that's a problem. Every single monster fight up to this point felt just like a complete joke.
You could really just skip it.
Yeah, it's bad when...
Monster shows up, you fight enemies, monster tries to fight you, Vulcan stick him in the face, he dies, big...
Vulcan Ball.
Oh god, the Vulcan...
I like that finisher.
I don't like the Vulcan Ball, but I think they were kind of going for...
Go Ranger?
Yes.
They were.
They were, but the problem is when it's every episode... Vulcan Ball, until they get the new Vulcan Ball, it's just the same thing, except it's no longer a volleyball, it's a bigger ball with spikes on it.
Which works.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem I have with Vulcan Ball, because it felt like not a weapon.
It felt like a volleyball in the face and made him explode for some reason.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's like
I don't know. But at least it doesn't summon a garbage truck.
I mean, they do it based on the monster and the enemy that they're fighting and seeing exactly how, it'll end up being something thematic for the monster that they're fighting. Because they had one time where it transformed into a muzzle for the Dragon Lord. And when he tried to spew out those gigantic fireballs, and they just exploded in his face. They killed the monster very gruesomely that way, by the way.
That's Go Ranger.
That was a great way.
That was 1977.
But no, I'm talking about this is in Sun Vulcan. This happened as well.
Oh, right.
This happened a couple times. I think it only happened like once or twice when they figured out exactly really what they wanted to do. You show later that it is robotic and it's not just a volleyball they're hitting somebody's face.
Sure it is.
But it just didn't work. It felt like a waste of something. And I understand that at the point they didn't have sidearms or anything like that. I don't even think they really got those until Dynaman or Bioman, where they actually had like blasters.
Yeah. But they had the Vulcan stick.
Yeah, which was an all-purpose tool, just like the Battle Feeders.
Batons.
Yeah, the Battle Feeder batons.
At least Sun Vulcan didn't make an S and a V in the air with their bodies.
Oh, well, sure. I'm a little bit upset at that now.
Thank you, Battle Fever.
But moving on to episode 23, Now, we not really end up doing much for characterization this time because a lot of the characters don't end up having any, except for Shark a little bit. Panther ends up getting most of the screen time, but we'll talk about that more when we actually get to his character review because a lot of his screen time doesn't matter as well. Red gets none. He doesn't get a single focus episode.
This is the first one?
Yes.
And that bothers me. He was just the leader. He didn't do anything.
It gets explained as to why. We'll also do that. But in episode 23, he ends up leaving. Like, they end up beating the monster. You see
a helicopter.
The helicopter end up landing on the carrier, and they go up there and be like, "Oh my God, it's my friend."
So-and-so.
And I was just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, wasn't Taka in his name?
Yes, Takayuki.
Takayuki, which I love how I think the first Red Ranger had a word in his name that means eagle in Japanese, and now we have Taka, which is hawk.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was just funny.
That was funny.
Speaking of all their names,
they
actor
all have
names.
The actor names?
The actor, like the name of the actor, is the first name of the character.
Oh, that's cool.
That's the only time that's ever happened.
That is cool.
Yeah. So it's like
but
the first role.
Unfortunately, it's in a culture where they do last names first as opposed to first names, so it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's really strange. But just getting on episode 23, this is when the first Volt Eagle ends up leaving. It was like, oh my goodness, finally we actually get a character. Because this guy is just basically a stand-in for a leader throughout the entire time.
And he's going to NASA.
He's going to NASA for some apparent reason. And I feel like they forget him. They forget his character when they end up doing the recap at the end. I feel like they just...
you're
forgettable character.
Oh, that recap. Yeah. God, I was wondering about that because he was in for half the show, did nothing. He's like, by the way, I'm going to NASA, bye. And this other guy...
it's like, you need to report to NASA. They need a pilot for their program. And he's like, okay, bye. He's like, I'll leave this in Takayuki's hands. And I'm just like, okay.
Which is also a weird thing when you, like with Battlefield, when you replace Kozak or Miss America, that's easier. Yes, someone has to now
become this character
who's already established, but also become a part of this team. But when you take the leader away and put in a new guy,
which is the first time that's ever happened, by the way. Shin Kendrick technically does that, but he comes back.
You take the leader away.
Yeah.
And the other two just go, okay, we'll listen to him now. I don't know about these people, but with me, I would have a problem with that.
Like I felt like the first Volt Eagle, it was literally, this is an archetype of a character. This is not a character in himself. But it's like when Takayuki came in and took over in episode 23, this legitimately became an actual character that I can get behind. I feel like I can actually do something with this character.
Not to mention, it's the character that is mimicked and copied in any future Sentai, whether in terms of flashbacks or Gokaiger when they become Sun Vulcan. Because you can tell that Captain Marvelous is using the sword style of Takayuki.
And speaking of that sword, the reason that we end up getting swords like basically every single season after this, except for I think the very next two, he sets that up for the Red Ranger to basically always have a sword, or the team to always have a sword.
Is good.
Yes, because no team before him, and I think it literally was, I think Diamond might have been the first one who used it, no other team had like an actual weapon. It was always just a stick or something like
Battle
that.
Fever had their own weapons.
Yeah, but it was never a sword. He set up.
Well, Red didn't have a sword, but Blue did.
Yeah.
In Battle Fever.
Well, it was a raper. I don't know if we can count that.
Technically.
But, yeah, episode 23, a lot of things end up happening. This is the episode that Amazon Killer gets introduced.
Amazon Killer, who was I liked Amazon Killer.
She was a great character.
She was a great character. I don't remember entirely. What happened to 01?
01 ends up exploding.
And the other three make it to the end of the series, which I thought was bull.
I think 01 just had to leave for some apparent reason, like the actual
actress.
Yeah, the actual actress had to leave. But 01 actually dies in episode 23 in a cave, and she's the first one to die by herself in the actual show on the terms of the villain team, because nothing's really happened to any of the generals up to this point.
Nope.
Queen Hedorian is always there. They had some great episodes.
The only ones who really leave the base are the generals.
And Hedorian every once in a while.
Yeah.
She stops being able to do that later on. We end up getting to some other episodes. Like this is also the episode where they introduce the other guy who works at the curry shop.
Oh
He's
yeah,
a useless character.
He was comic relief. That's it.
No, he was a bad character. There's no comic relief in him.
I think the point was to be a everyman comic relief. I love how he was that one episode. He was claiming to be a part of Sun Vulcan with a fake ID. But my favorite part of him in this entire series when Panther goes, "This is clearly a forgery," and he goes, "Show me a real one." And he goes, "I know you're part of Sun Vulcan, show me a real one then." I thought that was I kind of did give him a little golf clap for that.
Yeah. Then we end up getting a little bit further into the series. We end up getting introduced to, he was actually a sword style. The next couple episodes after Takayuki is introduced, after episode 23, are basically like from 23 to 26, are all about him and actually getting to learn his character. I feel like it was a problem with a lot of the early Sentai, and I'm just noticing this just watching this. A lot of the characters end up being the exact same with the Red Ranger.
Yep.
And I don't think it ends up becoming anything other than that until most likely, I want to say, Kaku Ranger, and that's only even technically.
Really? Because I would say Jetman. In terms of
basically still the same character.
But he was at least stronger.
But his motivations were different.
Yeah, he's a stronger character. Yeah. But anyway, I adored the villains this season. They were really related. They weren't. Not relatable. They were really entertaining. Mm-hmm. It didn't just seem like.
No, we're not skipping to the end of the series. Just like up to this point, we can tell like the villains are the main point of this show.
Yeah. Like they were the leading point.
They were the bread and butter. The reason that I kept coming back to the show, just watching every episode. However, we do end up getting to some points later on. Queen Dori ends up having a weird thing where her character likes to go back and forth in style. It's like she ends up being like a really joke character, or she ends up being really serious. And that, like when she's serious, she's a definite threat. A couple times they keep kidnapping Chief Ariyasha,
the chief's daughter.
Yeah, the chief's daughter, Arashiyama, when they end up capturing her a couple of times, and they constantly end up using her to end up having, Nick Sun Vulcan end up coming in. And I think that's a lot of problem. And just now, since I am watching V3, I noticed this as well. They love to capture whoever ends up being close to them. But I'm saying like that happens way too often for its own good in a show like this.
And when it's done over and over and it doesn't work every single time, you think they'd learn.
Then they don't. And it's like...
except for the one near the end of Sun Vulcan where they're like, "What are your demands?" And she goes, "Demands? This is a ritual."
Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah, that was a thing. So we're going to end up skipping once again a little bit more because nothing happens. A lot doesn't happen.
It's just... Here's the monster, here's the plan, they beat the monster, they fight on the robot, end of episode, go Sun Vulcan, next time.
Now, we do end up getting some hints throughout, like, the later half of the series where...
there's more going on.
Well, no, where...
Because, one thing we did forget to mention, the main villain, Hell Saturn, is not the man in charge. He serves the dark, omnipotent sun god.
Yes. And we end up getting some inklings, like he ends up understanding that he thinks that Hidorian is about like trying to take over.
Which she is.
She ends up trying to take over from him, her and Amazon Killer end up trying to take over from him. And then in episode 45, we end up seeing this entire plan end up coming to head when they end up introducing Inazuma King.
Who looks, in terms of the look of Inazuma King, he looks great.
He looks like a great character. And he's very powerful.
He's very powerful. He comes in, he beats the crap out of Sun Vulcan. They're like, "Vulcan ball," and he like swats it away.
He said no.
He said no, and they're like, "Well, what do we do now?"
Well, basically the entire thing, the reason why Inazuma King ends up coming in is because Amazon Killer worked for the Vader clan. She was a part of the Vader clan in Denziman, but she was never in that show. She ends up coming in this one, and apparently she was working with a partner, Inazuma Ginga, who came to Earth to try to find her. We'll put
quote unquote
quotations. But he ends up coming to Earth. He ends up being so strong, it's like Hell Saturn's like, "I have to get him on my side." And Hidorian's like, "We can't let that happen."
And Hidori's like, "We can't let that happen." Amazon Killer is like, "We can't trust him."
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, he apparently got her arrested. She subsequently got him arrested.
By the Galactic Police, just like with Dragon Ball Z, just put space in front of it.
Gavin. That's where the show's all interconnected.
But he was a great character because you knew he had his own agenda right from the moment. Mm-hmm. And this is where that moment was when these episodes start to have a connecting plot. Mm-hmm. Which is
the last 6 episodes is like we end up getting introduced to this very strong character. Hell, Saturn wants him to work for him because he's so strong that somebody has to help him stop Sun Vulcan
and take over the world. The Queen's like, if this succeeds, I'm never going to become the Queen of the Machine Empire. Mm-hmm. We need to fix this.
Like, I'll never be able to rebuild the Vapor Clan. I'm thinking, like, well, lady, all your people are gone anyway, but all right. There is one episode that I'm sort of upset because we did skip over. 36 and 37. We end up meeting this girl with who has ESP.
Oh, right, that 2-part.
That was a great.
Who apparently she is such a powerful Esper user, it was harming the Queen.
Mm-hmm. Apparently she was a descendant of one of the denizens from Denziman. She was Princess Denzi's like
great whatever
descendant or something. But her powers were so linked to being from that culture and from that physiology and biology and everything like that, that it was actually hurting Queen Hedorian, and she could not deal with it.
To the point where this Esper user ran away to join the convent because of the nightmare premonitions she was having. Mm-hmm. So, and she was a supermodel before.
Yes. Oh, she was extremely pretty too. I thought she was a very beautiful woman. I was like, wow, I wasn't actually expecting you. But they end up, because Queen Hedorian did not know exactly who it was, they end up trying to go out and send out a monster to go and kill a whole bunch of Espers.
Like very Holocaust-esque.
Yeah, it was a very Holocaust-esque trying to wipe out genocide people.
Which was holy.
And this ends up including her sister, the Esper's sister.
Right.
Who was also,
not as powerful.
Not as powerful, but she was a descendant of Denzi. And that did end up helping her a lot, because she ended up making a lot of money with her premonitions. Yeah, she was sort of a stingy character, and so was her fiance, husband, or whatever. So they kept trying to kill her. Sun Vulcan had to keep coming in. The sister did not want to be found out by Sun Vulcan at all. She just kept running away. There was this one part where I swear it looked like she was on like a modern hoverboard because she was just flying through the air with her hand back and everything. I thought
the fight with the non-Esper versus the Queen at the end was impressive. It was impressive for 1981.
I really missed this, and I'm so happy that we've gotten back to this with Zyuohger practical effects. I really like the CGI. Yeah, it can be good, but a lot of it ends up making it look really cheap. And I like a lot of the older Sentai and Rider because of their use of practical effects. And
depending on the practical effects.
Yeah, but I feel like that it holds a lot more weight.
Yeah, I get that.
It's like they're actually reacting to something.
As opposed to pretending to react to something. Yeah, and I get that. It's just that sometimes when the special effects just look better, you got
to end up weighing
the pros and cons.
The two. Now,
there's one episode I wanted to talk about that we skipped.
Go ahead.
It was pretty early on. There was an episode, I think they were trying to kidnap the daughter of one of the scientists, and they hijacked her school bus.
Yes.
And it was kind of scary, because it's one to hijack the school bus, take the girl and leave. No, it's another thing to hijack the school bus, kick the bus driver out, and then just take the whole bus of kids. Yeah. And then as they're driving away, make them sing. Mm-hmm. Essentially, wheels on the bus go round and round. That was the most sadistically scary thing ever.
It felt too real.
It's like they're screaming. The kids are just like all scared. They go sing "Wheels on the Bus," and they're like, "Wheels on the sing louder." Okay. It was terrifying.
It felt like a legitimate terrorist attack.
Oh God, it was terrifying, and that's just one of it was. Oh wow.
It's sad that we end up having to go back because it's like a lot of these episodes just don't end up standing out enough.
Because these good episodes are surrounded by these episodes that just don't mean anything, and you're just wondering where were these episodes the entire time. Not to mention the editing in this show to start off was piss poor. Mm-hmm. Lots of quick cuts.
Yeah, quick cuts are bad.
Oh my God, and
it's jarring.
It's jarring and disorienting at some points.
It is. The editing could have been a lot better.
It got better the more it went on, but
it sort of did. But I think at the same time they were also trying to spend their money in a lot of different ways. Because at this moment, I think Zubat was also going on. Gavin was just getting started, so pre-production money was going into that.
All right. Kamen Rider was going on.
Skyrider Super One of the two was going on at the same time. So it's just like they didn't end up using a lot of their 18 for this particular show.
Which unfortunately shows.
Yeah, it really does. The writing, the characterizations, they're all... It's sort of sad when you just end up having like the person out of suit and the person in suit seem like two completely separate people. That shouldn't always be
like we talked about at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the show, as we end up saying, we end up seeing that Inazuma King ends up being extremely strong. He's a great character. One of the scenes that you end up seeing him in, he's just sitting in...
on the throne.
On the throne, playing a guitar. Like
a bright red guitar, and you're just like... Well, no. One thing we did forget, this was after Queen and Amazon Killer convinced Hell Saturn and Inazuma Ginga that to fight each other, that they were going after each other, and he kills Hell Saturn.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I just killed the leader. I'm gonna sit on this throne and play my guitar like a badass.
And this is after even Queen Hedori ends up getting voted in to be the leader. The leader. We say
he
voted
gives
in,
no shits.
He does not. She ends up kicking him out of the chair, and he's like, whatever.
With his shoulder cannons.
But at this point as well, we end up seeing that Queen Hedorian, after Hell Saturn is killed, ends up having some premonitions of him.
Not really premonitions. He's being haunted by his phantom, which we learn later is purposeful.
Yeah.
And then he haunts her dreams. She's scaring the daylights out of her. It's like a very Macbeth kind of feel.
Yeah, it is.
And then one night he goes, "I am rusting your heart.
Yes.
You are now dying."
So she's like, we end up seeing that she ends up getting extremely paranoid.
Oh my god.
Her breathing starts to just
get heavier.
Just not breathe anymore.
And like when we say paranoid, we mean that they were going to give her a new heart. She woke up and said, "No, you're gonna kill me and take over with Inazuma Ginga. Yes. You're all against me," and runs away and kills herself by trying to do magic and to beat Inazuma Ginga.
When she ends up trying to bring in Misa
for the ritual.
Yeah, for the ritual, and that does not work out, and that's the episode that she ends up dying, which I believe is in episode 50.
No. Not 50.
49?
Yeah, 40. I think it was 49.
Okay, 49.
Because then Hell Saturn comes back as a phantom, because Queen wasn't the only one who could see Hell Saturn's phantom. He does appear to other people as well. Because it's revealed that the omnipotent black god is a brain in a jar.
Yes.
And he is essentially casting a hologram.
But the thing is, this hologram could also take shape. And
make physical contact.
Basically. So he ends up weakening Inazuma Ginga and throws him
into the Monster Maker and makes him Lightning Manga.
And I was so upset because basically all they ended up doing was just putting a mask on his face.
Yep.
That was depressing. But it's like when they did that, they also drastically weakened his powers.
Yep.
Because he got destroyed so quickly. We end up getting introduced to the new Vulcan ball at this point, which is basically...
After Inazuma King gets introduced.
Destroys the other one. They basically just end up putting 3 footballs together, throw them up in the air, it spins, and becomes a spike ball of death.
Multicolored spike ball of death.
It was multicolored. Can't forget that, colors of light, shit.
And then instead, I swear to God, when they do it, because they hit it, each of them hit it, and then Red kicks it or punches it into the... I hear 1, 2, and I swear to God, I keep hearing Eagle go 4 and punches it. But I know he's not. But I can't stop hearing him go 4 and counting's hard.
3 doesn't exist. Come on now. There are 3 people on the scene. What are you talking about? That's all right.
God.
But at this point, it's like I feel like it's really weird as well because I felt like they were trying to shill in a last toy.
Yep.
And that's really weird.
It's gonna poke someone's eye out.
And I feel like when you end up introducing something so late like they did here, what's the point?
It's not going to sell well.
It won't sell well. There's really no point to it. And I don't know. It felt like such a last-minute addition that they weren't really sure what to do. And we ended up getting this a few other times as well in later series. But we ended up having something like this where just a last-minute toy that was totally just put into the show. They tried to... it worked, yeah. It worked in actually putting it into the show, but it felt like just such a weak addition. Amazon Killer ends up dying near the end of the show. They end up going into 3-on-1 combat, and even though it is 3-on-1, Amazon Killer is extremely powerful. And basically the only way that they beat her is that she ends up killing herself.
There was one problem I had with that fight. The entire series, she's been using this knife. And then she like pokes her palm with a knife and stuff explodes.
Like it flashes and stuff explodes.
But this fight, she's got a sword and shield, and she's kicking their butt. And I'm just wondering, why weren't you using that before?
Because she never actually fought them directly.
And then, I mean, if she's that powerful, why wouldn't she fight them directly before? And then they really aren't beating her. It's kind of even ground. And after they knock the shield and sword out of her hand, she goes back to her trusty knife. And then she says, "The god is in the ice room." And then with the most worst acting I've kind of ever seen for a death scene, stabs herself.
Yeah. And
under the armpit. And then flings and falls and explodes.
And then they flash with Sun Vulcan. And they flash with her, she's still falling. And then she dies.
It's just... that I did have a problem with that.
It felt so long. I mean, she ended up finding the omnipotent god before anybody else in the show.
Yeah.
Because she did not trust anything that was happening.
This is after Queen
Hidori dies.
Yeah, Hidori dies.
And
she's pretty much the only one left.
Yeah, she was really the only one left. The Zero Girls were still there as well, but I mean, they weren't really doing anything.
They were machines. They just followed orders.
They literally did nothing. And Omnipotent God is the one who controlled all the machines that include Hell Saturn. Apparently, Hell Saturn was a robot the entire time.
No one's surprised about this.
No one was surprised about that. We end up seeing that again.
Machine from the Black Lagoon.
But it was just, it felt weak at that point. Just her death, because she was such a good character. I loved her pose whenever she showed up. She was hilarious with that. I just felt like this character could have been so much better with her. And the very last thing that we end up seeing is Misa is still there because Queen Hidori had already captured her by this point for the ritual where she was going to sacrifice her. And I don't know, it just felt like the ending felt sort of rushed.
It did, but not as rushed as Battle Fever though.
Yeah, it kind of in those last 6 episodes.
It did build up to that.
Yeah,
and also after the ending, it was more of a ending like with unlike Battle Fever, where they're like, we beat the villain, good job, the end.
Look off to the sunset.
With this one, they're at the zoo that their base is under, and the chief's like, so what are y'all gonna do now? And they're like, well, I'm gonna go back to being a pilot. I'm gonna go back to studying oceanology. And Panther's like, I'm gonna go work with my old man.
Yeah.
And then they're all like, so who's gonna marry the girl? And then they all start fighting over that, which is like, ooh.
I felt that was bad.
And she picks the talking dog.
Yeah. Now let's move on to characterizations.
Eagle 1 didn't exist.
Nope, didn't exist. His character left. His actor left because he wanted to get back to his music career. I think his next album was just about to come out, so he had to go on tour for that. So he had to leave. Eagle 2 was a much better character. He felt like a strong, competent leader. He brought a new thing with the sword to the forefront. He was a swordsman, or I guess a kendo practicer, and it really showed in his
pilot
character.
And
yeah, he had a lot of skills.
Yeah. Why wasn't he the first one?
I don't know. But I'm glad that we actually did get him, because you know who he is also? He's also Cocker Ranger White's, her father in that show.
Like the actor or the character?
The actor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he plays her father in that show. And I can't wait to really get to that show. It was one of my favorites, and he was such a great character as well.
Ninja.
Yep.
But...
Then we get to
Shark,
who he didn't have a presence near really the beginning of the show.
He the first thing you see him, I think he's playing a guitar on his boat, and you just go, "Oh wow, what a douche."
Yeah,
and then he's not. He's actually one of the nicer guys.
He was one of the better characters in the show, and I really wish they would have done more with him.
Yeah,
because
that.
I felt like he had a lot of backstory that just nothing was done with.
There was that one episode where an old professor of his got kidnapped and does actually die.
Yeah.
And he's comforting the professor's young son, and I'm just like, holy.
Yeah, I felt like he was the most sympathetic and most personable out of all of them. I felt like Vol Eagle 2 was a great character, but he also felt a little bit cold.
Yeah.
And I guess that is a problem with him not being there near the beginning of the show.
There was that one episode, I can't remember if this was Shark or Eagle 2, where they get injured. I think it was Eagle 2. He gets injured by himself. It was Eagle 2. He was practicing with the dune buggy thing, and he gets ambushed, injured, and then thrown off a cliff. And he washes up, and his family takes care of him. And he wasn't really cold. He was kind of cold then, but like, because the girl who took the young girl who took care of him started to develop a crush on him and all of that. It was because
that was just a bad plot line that never should have existed.
Yeah. Though I did like the one plot line where it was the manga, the buffalo monger that was pretending to be the forest god that everyone thought was angry, and he was. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I thought it was interesting because I was starting to believe this may not be a monster of the week. This may be a legitimate deity.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't. I'm like, all right, I give them props for keeping me. I give them pops for keeping me guessing.
The only thing I really hated about that episode, and this also does go with his characterization more than the episode review, the boy ended up believing that it was the forest god throughout the entire thing.
And then when they beat the monster, he's like, no, he's real. You should go looking for him, little boy.
That was terrible. That was a terrible
you know that
decision
he's like,
by Royal too.
He was like, you know, he's like, as long as he exists in his heart. No,
that's not how this works.
That's not how this works.
At all. I was like, that it was just such a weird misstep for that.
It was, and I think what he was thinking was,
it's a kid.
It's a kid. Maybe he is real. Maybe he's not. How do we know?
But it just felt like a really weird misstep for a character who seemed like much more realist than anything else up to this point.
But
like, I get this is only a couple episodes that after he was introduced.
But kids will be kids.
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like a really, really weird and bad thing for him to do. Now, let's move on to Paul Panther.
The first thing you do when you see him is he's eating like his 5th plate of curry, and they're like, I want another, and they're like, well, we're out, and he's like, oh, and then you're like, that's his entire character.
Now this is the thing that they did also borrow from Go Ranger with Daigo, I believe his name was. He was Key Ranger.
Daigo.
He was yellow. And really all he did was just eat curry as well. Like that was the whole curry thing, and that's basically stayed as a mainstay since the series has started. Them always eating curry. But I felt like with Vol Panther, he was just such a bad character. He was annoying.
Yeah.
And that's not good. This is what I was talking about when I meant like the character in suit and the character out of suit are two completely different people.
Yep.
Because I felt like Vol Panther himself was very competent. He was a good fighter. He had some hilarious moments like the mole digging thing.
Oh, yeah.
Which was great.
Vol Panther used dig. Super effective.
Super effective. But I felt like it could have just been so much better if they had a different actor for him. Because he was just such an annoying character.
Because he was the 19-year-old.
He was, but he was also boring. It was like you can't be boring and annoying at the same time. And that ends up being extremely a big problem with this one character. He had this one thing where he said his name twice, like, Hyo Hyo, and I was just like, why? Why is that
also,
even
his voice made my ears bleed.
He had 2 different voices, I swear.
Oh my god.
I refuse to believe that it was the same person in and out of suit. Because his voice out of suit was higher. He was very bumbling character. It's like, I get that you're 19, but come on, man, have some cojones. Do something. Because it was so bad. I hated seeing him on screen every time, especially because a lot of the earlier episodes focused on him.
Yeah.
Like, I get that he was the youngest, and I think they were trying to make something of him, but it did not work. Yeah. He was, it felt really, really weak outside of the suit, and I don't know. But when he got into actual suit, I was like, this is a fighter that I can get.
There were lots of good ideas in this show that weren't, like, fully
extrapolated on.
Like, especially, I think it was the episode after Eagle 2 was introduced, or a few episodes after, Batmonger, where the bat, in a fight, claims my venom will kill you, and bites him, and then they don't mention the venom ever.
Yeah.
Like, and then the entire plot is, I broke my teeth on your suit, so I'm going to infect people to get their vampire teeth. I'm like,
that's the problem that we had.
But you just...
I'm just concerned with this.
You just bragged about your venom and then it's never brought up again.
It never really ended up doing anything.
Also, the teeth were just...
Yeah.
The costumes in that episode were awful.
That was really, really bad. Let's talk about Chief Arashiyama.
I liked him.
He was a very, very good, strong character.
He was smart. He was capable. I love how no matter what, no matter who they kidnapped, what, he was like, no.
Yeah.
Especially in the last episode, where they had his daughter pinned into a wall and they say, kneel down and apologize. And she goes, just do it. And he goes, well, that's not my daughter.
Yeah, and he did not care.
That's not my daughter. And he leans down and grabs Red Vulcan stick and just throws it at the brain of the jar.
Throws it directly at
No, he doesn't
his
throw it.
face.
He just holds it up and shoots a beam out because, all-purpose tool. And I'm just like, she was like, just do it. And I'm like, wow, that's not her.
Yeah.
Because we were here 20 episodes ago where they kidnapped her and she said, don't give them anything.
Yeah, let them kill me. I don't matter as much as the rest of the world does.
Because they were holding her ransom for the robot,
Mhm.
which is another thing that everybody wants this robot.
And that ends up being a thing multiple times within the first few seasons.
Yeah, because
we saw it in Battle Fever.
It's a new thing.
Yeah.
Well, with Battle Fever, I get it because they haven't seen it before. But
Speaking of Misa, she was such a good character.
she was.
I loved her.
I loved she took no shits. She gave no shits. I'm wondering, why does she not have a suit?
That's the biggest issue.
I think it's because she has no military training.
That doesn't even matter. I felt like there was so many things happening behind the scenes with this show that we will never know about, considering the fact that this show is 35 years old at this point. It's just, I felt that was so weird considering the fact that she did not have a suit and she was extremely capable. They technically gave her one when she ended up dressing as like the white, like the other rapier user when they had the episode with the Rosemonger.
Right.
Because she was a white fencer. And it's like, she really could have been like, I don't know, Purple Osprey or something like that. I felt she had so much potential to become a ranger. She did so many of the things that many of the rangers already did.
The entire point of her character was shown in the first scene you see her. You know why? Because the first scene you see her, she's in a bikini swimming. That's the entire point of her character. She's the pretty face.
Which is bad, because she was basically like Denzi Pink or Momo Ranger or Miss America. She was basically that character
without going into fights.
Without actually being in the fights, and that's so depressing. Because I'm not even like this. I know everybody's like up in arms about SJWs and everything, but this is really bad in terms of showing her when she is already capable, but nothing ever actually ends up happening with her character at all, and that ends up being problematic to any young girl who's watching that and something like that at the time. She had everything to become a ranger, but because of production issues, direction issues, everything that happened behind the scenes, we don't know what happened.
Or it could even just be the thing of that their target audience may not be females. At that point, their target audience may have been 10-year-old boys
and seeing this all male cast, could have done something like that.
Yeah, and then seeing an all male cast and then seeing the pretty girl more appeals to that type of demographic.
And then we end up, because I've read a couple things on this, people did not like the fact that it was just
three. Yeah, just three men.
Yeah, on this show.
And it's literally the only Sentai that doesn't have any females and is only three people.
Mm-hmm.
Any ones that from now on start with three people get two more eventually, and they usually, even in the three, will include a woman.
Yeah. It's like at least somewhere there will always end up being a woman. They did that in Live Man. It was Blue Dolphin. They did that in Hurricane Ranger. They did that in Kamen Ranger, because Kakure White was just the only girl. We'll end up talking about a lot more, just versus Mika versus Kakure White, who was team leader for that series.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a time and a passion thing, because there were 15 years between that show and
it may have just been the time and culture during the 80s in Japan, but versus what we're used to.
What we're used to at this point. It's really, really strange how they ended up just treating Misa's character when she had so much plausibility for being the fourth in that show. And she technically was, but they just didn't let her do anything in the fights.
Nope.
She did all the, hiding behind the scenes and everything, but that, I don't know. And
because there was also, it wasn't just her at the beginning, there was an assistant. In the very first episode, there was an assistant who turned out to be a spy.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is the worst spy on the face of the planet. Because then as soon as they suspect her, instead of saying, no, she's like, yes, what? And then they jettison out her hallway or something.
Yeah.
It was, which I thought was funny. And then it's just down to Misa, and I don't know.
It's just down to Misa, and it's just down to all of the females for the machine arm.
Yep.
With 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, who all end up getting destroyed at the end of the last episode because they piloted the other giant robot that they ended up fighting, and it's just like they were really the only female representation in this show. It's like they're either villains or they're a character who always end up having to be saved, who even while strong, she still ended up getting captured. And that I hated that. I think
the last time she was captured was not on her. That was magic.
Yeah, that was legitimately magic, which killed Queen Dorian. Let's talk about her for a little bit.
Queen Dorian was one of the best characters in the show, bar none.
I loved her so much.
And I'm not even talking on in the point of bias of seeing her as Rita Repulsa.
Yeah, this isn't even nostalgia.
I am noting that she plays the exact same character, evil sorceress.
She's just fun.
She was big. Her expressions were big. She was always involved. She always wanted to do this, do that. She always had a plan. Though at first she seemed like to be disgusted with the fact that she became a machine.
Yeah, she did not want to end up becoming that. She was like, I had in the first fight that you end up seeing her like after she ends up getting revived. She was like, I had to deal with this with the Denzi Man, and I had to deal with this with Sun Vulcan.
That was the best moment. That was the best one. It's like, first Denzi Man, now Sun Vulcan. What the hell?
Yeah, she was completely done with basically everything.
With anything to do with colored spandex.
She was, but she had so much charisma. Seeing her on screen, it was like your eyes were immediately drawn to this woman, and how her actress just brought so much.
The way she stood with the cane, the walking stick, and just that lean. She was you know the lean I'm talking about if you're listening to this. That just like, I can't deal with your shit lean. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, it was the best.
She was so strong as a character, and her actress really brings that out in her. And I love the fact that we just got to see her. I really wish we could have watched Denzi Man because of her.
Oh,
Ken Gioba might have been in that show, and I love Ken Gioba, but I really wanted to see it because it was her first major role in this show, in the series in general.
And then she'll get it again in about a decade with Z Ranger.
And then one more time, even though it was only for like 2 episodes.
Magic Ranger?
In Magic Ranger.
Right. But she was great. Amazon Killer, who gets introduced later, was also great. Mm-hmm. You could tell from the get-go she served this queen.
Yep.
She did not give a shit about anybody else.
Except her queen.
Hell Saturn was a good villain.
He tried so hard to be Darth Vader and did not quite make it.
But he was a good villain. You could tell that
Now, there's a difference between good and being there and like being menacing.
He wasn't a menacing villain.
No.
Because he didn't do anything.
Really didn't.
But he was a stronger villain than, say, Negos from Battle Fever.
Because he actually, moved.
Yeah, when as somebody's, being insubordinate, he will pimp slap.
Yeah, that's basically at that point, you might actually end up dying within the next few minutes. Get away from me.
And then you get Inazuma Ginga, who was also a good character.
I really wish we could have gotten more of him. Like, we get more of his character type later on in the show.
Yeah, like Changeman.
Yeah, we end up getting, like, not really more of his character type, but I mean just like that badass villain that you just love to hate.
That badass villain that you love to hate, but who's not the main villain.
Yeah, and I like the fact that this is the first time that we really end up seeing something like he's really strong, but he doesn't care enough to go out and fight everybody. He reminds me a lot of Enter, at least from Go Busters near the beginning of the show, because you could tell Enter was a strong person, but you don't really get to see him until he ends up getting like his powered up form later on after he ends up getting destroyed the first time.
Yeah. Though we will talk about Enter a lot in Go Busters. He was the best thing about that show.
He was the best thing about that show.
In Sun Vulcan, the best thing about this show was Queen Hedora. And honestly, the villains in general, because they felt menacing, they felt like it was a threat, and you were glad to see Sun Vulcan win at the end.
Yeah, I didn't feel nearly as much satisfaction watching this show as I did versus Battle Fever.
Really, I felt more satisfaction in this show than Battle Fever.
I felt like it's because I enjoyed all of the characters in Battle Fever, like that on both sides.
You enjoyed all the characters aside from France and Miss America 1.
Yeah,
but
it's like
I enjoyed the characters after Eagle 2 gets introduced. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed most of the characters aside from Panther.
Yeah,
but and even the random worker at the curry shop I enjoyed at times, just to like bring some calmness to this chaos of monsters. He's still trying to play with the kids and make them think he's an Esper by reading the card in the mirror.
He's also bad.
Yeah, I didn't say he was a good character. I was just saying. The worst episode was the one where they make the the villains make him think he's the trainer for the female version of Sun Vulcan.
Yeah, it's just he had Sukehara, who was who they introduced a lot of things in episode 23. He was another one of them. He was another character.
It's supposed to be essentially an intern or an apprentice chef under the chief at their courage shop.
But he annoyed me. He annoyed me more than Bull Panther, and that's actually saying something. I just didn't like either one of them. I felt like a lot of things in this show just could have been left behind. Those two characters mainly being the main two.
Yeah, they were very.
Speaking of Bull Panther, I totally forgot about this until just now. You know, his actor got arrested.
Did he really?
Recently?
Recently? What happened?
Like last year.
Oh, for what?
Child pornography. Back to actual Sun Vulcan. But I just wish that a lot of things were better in terms of character strength. Like, I did not really care about a lot of the heroes, and that's a problem in itself. We end up sort of running into this problem later on with Geki Ranger, but Geki Ranger is just like Blue was the most boring one. Everybody
yeah, but we'll talk about that when we get to Geki Ranger. In terms of Sun Vulcan, overall I enjoyed it, at least in the terms of enjoying it because it's horrible, as opposed to Battle Fever, which I hated it because it was horrible. Like the one episode 6, where their plan was to replace all the electronics and appliances in every home, and just that moment where the faucet that's coming out of the wall for some reason goes up, is now pointing up and spouts fire, and the phone says, "Machines will roll all," and then sprays the dude in the face with water. I was on the floor. Why was the child's toy tank in the fridge in the middle of the night where it rolled out to go shoot them? Why was it in the refrigerator? It was funny.
Like, between this one and the last one, it's just there is such a difference in quality. They ended up doing they don't really do much in the series in general until Dynaman, but it's like at least this one had a little bit more story. And I felt like that really ends up helping at least Sun Vulcan a little bit at the end. I enjoyed a lot more of the characters and like the actual characters in Battle Fever a lot more than I enjoyed the characters in Sun Vulcan, at least on the hero side. But with the actual story, I just really enjoyed Sun Vulcan a lot more.
I enjoyed Sun Vulcan a lot more between the two. If I had to give it a rating, I'd say a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Mainly due to the fact that
Queen Dori was exist.
Because she existed, and at the end, I was satisfied with the ending, and I was almost sad to see it go.
And the fact that it had one. But there was a slight,
"Oh, I'm done."
Yeah.
As opposed to Battle of Fever went, "Thank God, I'm done."
Yeah, I don't know. It's really up in the air for me. If I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it a 5. I didn't really.
We kind of swapped between Battle Fever, didn't we? Yeah. But I was kind of expecting that when we were going in. But overall, I thought it was a decent Sentai with decent ideas that I'm glad have carried over and become tradition.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just wish we could have delved a little bit deeper, and I felt like that really could have helped. If we could have gotten the characters from Denziman back.
Or if they decided to not do Denziman season 2 and then just say we'll do another Sentai and just go full into another Sentai.
Yeah.
I feel like the fact that this was supposed to be Denziman season 2
because Denziman was just so extremely popular,
and then it wasn't, I think, screwed it from the get-go. It was dead before it ever went out the door.
They couldn't get anybody back, so it's just like the only person they got back was Queen of Dorian. Yes, she really carried that show, but the fact that they couldn't get anyone else of the actual Denziman back did not help it that much in the end. And I just wish they could have done something with that. But that's, then and then, so we can't really do much about it now.
But is there anything else that you want to talk about with Sun Vulcan?
I'm so happy we're done.
All right, so this should conclude this episode of Tokucast. For those who haven't subscribed already, please do so. We will be next doing Kamen Rider V3.
So excited to do V3.
I'm sure you are. And if you want, there is a Sun Vulcan movie. If you want us to talk about it, please let us know in the comment section.
Or please go to toku-cast@blogspot.com and just let us know in the comment section there.
Yeah, and always please like and subscribe. Let us know what you think of this. If you have any suggestions or anything, please let us know. Comments, anything. We are open to suggestions, open to any critiques, criticisms, critiques, pointers, anything. Please, we
really want to hear you.
Yes. And again, Tokucast on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Toku-cast at blogspot.com. And we will see you in 2 weeks on April 1st.
April 9th.
April 9th? Really?
Look, it's the week you forgot.
Hey, I did. Right, so that's next week. So April 9th.
Where we finally start to talk about Kamen Rider and Kamen Rider V3, who is one of my favorites as of now.
Thank you so much again for watching. Hope to see you soon.
Bye.